What's up, everybody? Andrew Mahone here with Darium's Competitive Pokemon. Today, I'm going to be doing a video on optimal shuffling technique for the Pokemon trading card game. Very excited to be doing this video finally. I have my own technique for shuffling, which involves riffling with some mass shuffling. Going to be talking about those techniques, but I've also done a little bit of research, just looked up some things. I know that riffle shuffling is the optimal way to randomize a deck of cards. This has been proved by statisticians. It's just the quickest, most efficient way to achieve, what is close to true randomness, even though true randomness is really kind of more of a theory than an actual thing. But it has been found, and I will link to this, discussion below. It has been found. There was a study done in the early 90s where a statistician found that riffle shuffling 7 times makes it so that any combination of cards in the deck is about equally possible, right? And the crazy thing is that 5 riffle shuffles is even not nearly as random as 7 shuffles is. So apparently 7 is the magic number here. 7 riffle shuffles is what will help you achieve that, true randomness. But as I said, randomness more of a theory than an actual thing that you can obtain, especially in a deck of Pokemon cards. But the idea is that any combination, when you open your deck, that any combination of cards is equally likely, right, than any other. And 7 riffle shuffles, and just a model for you right here, that is a riffle shuffle, and 7 riffle shuffles is what helps obtain that level of randomness better than any other kind of casual or any popular shuffling technique. So going to be going over some shuffling techniques here, just things that you might see at a Pokemon tournament, things to look out for as well as I talk about this in this video. Then I'm also going to be showing how to practice your own riffle shuffle, assuming that you want to be using the most optimal randomization technique for your cards. First of all, you may see a lot of players doing this at a tournament, and this is called pile shuffling. Pile shuffling is a horrible, very slow way to randomize your cards, but even I am, guilty of pile shuffling. And the reason that I pile shuffle is not really to randomize my cards, but it is to count my cards. So pile shuffling is the easiest way to count your cards. Make sure that you haven't dropped one. If you are at a tournament and you're starting off a match, you may see players doing this. It's just an easy way to make sure that you're not missing a card. If I finish my count right here on this 4th card with a 7 pile shuffle, which is the number that I use just because I like the number 7, then I know that I have not dropped a card on the floor or something like that. If my pile shuffle turns up short, then I might just go and recount my deck real quick to make sure that I do have all of my cards. I have turned up a card short in a pile shuffle scenario before, but I would not suggest pile shuffling as an actual form of randomizing your deck. In fact, a few players got into a lot of trouble years ago for doing a technique which is called double nickeling, which is essentially ordering your cards, right? So you would order maybe all the energy in one pile, all the trainers in another pile, and all the Pokemon in another pile, and then doing a 5-card shuffle or pile shuffle like this, and then going ahead and doing it again. And there's something like, if you do that twice, I don't know because I don't double nickel and haven't ever done it, but there is some sort of technique. I'll link to it, to an article on it or something in the description if you're more interested in double nickeling. Anyways, if you do perform a double nickel, which is ordering your deck, then piling a couple times, then you could do a couple of kind of fake shuffles, just cuts like this, which don't actually contribute to randomizing your deck at all. Present it, and that is an illegal shuffle. I mean, that is essentially stacking your deck. What you've done is you've ordered the cards and then, kind of randomized them. You've divided them up in a way, not randomized. You've divided them up in a way that you want them to appear maybe Pokemon Energy Trainer, something like that. In the Magic the Gathering, that's called mana weaving, and Pokemon players have tried to do that as well, which is also illegal, weaving your trainers and your energy and your Pokemon to have an even distribution. Now, as a player, you may want there to be an even distribution of trainers, energy, and Pokemon so that when you open your starting hand, that you don't have a dud hand. However, that is not truly random. If you are, somehow stacking your deck to have an even distribution of energy, trainers, and Pokemon, you are cheating. And that's just the way that it is. Your deck should be randomized in a way that any combination of cards, when you draw off the top, is equally possible, right? And the really the only way to achieve that, or the most efficient way to achieve that at a tournament setting, is with some riffle shuffles. So that is going to be the most effective way to shuffle. I have linked to the article talking about that in the description below if you want some more defense or if you're more of a numbers person and want to get into it. But the science behind the riffle shuffle is that it is flawed, right? I mean, that's kind of the inherent appeal of it. If we look at this cut here, you can see that when you do perform the riffle shuffle, the act of your thumbs being dragged over the cards like this makes it so that naturally some groups of get let out in one. Sometimes there's just single cards that get let out. Sometimes there are groups of 2 or 3 that get let out, in the alternation, things like that. And it's that imperfection, it's that kind of spontaneity of the shuffle that makes it the most valid form of randomization, is that you don't know that it's going to be 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, right? Just the fact that it is an imperfect shuffle is what makes it so good at randomizing a deck of cards. Now, some players are worried about a riffle shuffle damaging their cards, and that's a valid concern because the act of riffling, the act of dragging your thumbs over the card like that does inherently bend them. Now, some players such as myself are not very concerned with the bending of the cards because I have my cards to play with. I'm only interested in playing with them. The cards that are in my decks are not collector pieces. They are cards that I'm trying to win a tournament with. So if I'm trying to win a tournament, I am trying to randomize my deck as efficiently and quickly as possible. So for me, a riffle shuffle is a no-brainer. But I know that a lot of players invest a lot of money into their cards and are concerned with preserving that investment, so they will use what's called a mash shuffle. Now, I do some mash shuffling when I play the Pokemon trading card game, but I only do it as a supplement to riffle shuffling. I do a combination of both. Riffle shuffling is the best, most effective way to shuffle a deck. However, I might just do, a few riffles, a few mashes, and call it a day, maybe a cut or two just to mix things up. But pure mash shuffling, which is just taking 2 stacks of cards like this and pushing one into the other, is actually just not nearly as random as a riffle shuffle. First of all, if the cuts of your cards are not perfectly even, some of them will not get randomized. And if I try to show this off for you here on this camera, if say I have a larger pile on one side than I do on the other, some of these cards you can see. Some of these cards are not getting mixed, and that's because my draw, my cut was not perfect. So some of these cards are going to stay in the same order. We got this chunk down here that's staying in the same order with that mash shuffle, and this chunk up here that is staying in the same order. So really, the mash shuffle does pale in comparison. Also, it's not nearly as random when you're pushing cards into one another. If you take a look at just this cut here, or maybe I could show on this camera, if we take a look on this cut, it is way more likely that you're going to have a division of just one card, one card, then one card, one card, then one card. And it's that lack of randomization there as well. The fact that you're more likely just to get the cards sandwiched one by one together than you are with a riffle shuffle, that makes it less random than a riffle. So riffling is the most random, the best, most random way to shuffle your deck. I think that mash shuffling is less effective. It is less time efficient as well, though mash shuffling will preserve your cards better. So I do see a lot of players using mash only when they shuffle. That to me is a little troubling since it's not nearly as good at randomizing your deck as riffle shuffling. But, from a collector's standpoint, I understand why they do that. However, if I see someone doing mash only shuffling, I will pick up their deck at a tournament and give it a few extra mashes myself just to make sure that it is getting thoroughly randomized, because I don't really trust a mash only shuffle. I really do just look for players that are riffling their decks to make sure, not only that, but the riffling of the deck, the cards stay face down, which I also prefer. If players are mash shuffling, I can see the deck, right, as I'm mash shuffling. And that's actually a cheat that players will use too as they mash shuffle, because they'll look down at their deck and you could see where cards are as you are mash shuffling. And you can also see the bottom card very easily because it's right here. And if players have knowledge of where the cards are located in the deck as they are randomizing it, then that is cheating because it's not random. The idea of random is that you don't know where any of the cards are going to be located. But if you're looking at your cards as you randomize them, you may know that for instance, right here, there's a max elixir in the middle of the deck. Now, I just completed that shuffle. I saw that max elixir go into the middle of the deck. If I were to give that to my opponent, and I know that my opponent the entire game has been cutting in the middle of the deck, they may cut, and then I draw my 7 cards, 6 cards, something like that, and I may end up getting that max elixir. Now, it was right there. So it was pretty close. Now, if we try this again, say I'm looking for a Turtonator, right? And I see my Turtonator right there going into the middle of the deck. I'm happy with that Turtonator there. Might cut the deck, draw into my hand, and boom, there's Turtonator, right? Because I stopped shuffling with the Turtonator in the middle of the deck. So this is a technique. It's not a perfect cheat because obviously you're waiting on your opponent to cut you into a card, but the reason that it's possible is because you could see your deck as you are shuffling. So I would be very wary of any players looking at their deck as they perform a mass shuffle. This is one of my other big issues with mass shuffling, with math shuffling or mash shuffling. Now you can do it in a way where your deck is more face downward, but a lot of players that I see doing a mass shuffle do have their library or their deck just open like this, and especially can see the bottom card. The bottom card is problematic as well because say you're about to get end to 2 or 3 cards, something like that. Your deck is very small, and you see a card that you don't want, like Super Rod, and you might just leave that at the bottom because then if your opponent cuts the deck in the middle, you're not going to be getting the Super Rod. Even though that is a small cheat, it is a way to stack your odds against your opponent and something that makes me very wary of mass shuffling in the first place. So I vastly prefer riffle shuffling. Not only is it a superior shuffling technique, it's much more difficult for opponents to cheat when they are riffle shuffling because it is just a true randomization technique, and the deck is face down the entire time. So I really do think that riffle shuffling is the optimal shuffling technique, but I see a lot of players do not adopt it just because it might damage their cards. So let's talk about that a little bit. With a riffle shuffle, you do separate the deck into 2 different piles, and you place your knuckles in the middle of the deck. Your thumbs are going to be on the edge of the deck, and the rest of your fingers wrapped around the bottom of the cards like this. To start the riffle, you're going to be bending both decks in half until the bottom cards start to get released from the bottom of the deck, and then you push them together. As you push the cards together, you're going to be bending the cards back the other way by putting pressure with your palms here on the bottom corners, and that's what causes them to spring back up into action. This is a lot of bending, right? And this will damage your cards in the long run. You can see this Volcanion here, if we pull this out, does have some crease damage on the back of it. So if you do perform riffle shuffling a lot, as I do, at tournaments over a long period of time, you can expect some of this creasing to happen. But like I've said, this is really just the best, most optimal way to shuffle. If you are a collector, I highly suggest just learning how to shuffle, riffle shuffle your deck. Maybe you could be careful. Now, there is a difference between I go in on my cards. Like I really bend them when I riffle. But some players can perform much lighter riffles. I've seen some players put both decks on the table and just very lightly bring the corners up and then push them together. That is an option as well. Not very good at that technique, but I've seen this happen, and that is a way to riffle shuffle, which still is random, but does preserve the cards a little bit better. It's kind of like a combination between riffling and mash shuffling. I also, after talking to Sam Chen suggested that when he riffle shuffles, he puts his knuckles further over onto the corners. If we look here, you can see he puts his knuckles over here and said that he has helped preserve the condition of his cards by, placing his knuckles in the corner of the cards rather than directly in the middle. Now, I'm not terribly concerned with the condition of my cards. These are my cards to play with, not my cards to collect. The cards that I am collecting, I keep in a binder somewhere, and I don't take them out. So these are my cards that I'm trying to win tournaments with. I'll put full arts, whatever, rainbow rares, just the version of the cards that I like the best, because to me, when I'm playing a game of Pokemon, I like to see the version of the card that, that I like. and I like to play with it. So I get enjoyment out of that, just like, someone might get enjoyment out of riding in a Maserati or a Porsche or a very nice car, right? Eventually you got to take that car out of the garage and give it a spin in order to get some sort of enjoyment out of it, right? So I feel the same way about Pokemon cards. They're going to get a little dinged up, but to me, the real joy comes out of playing the cards, not keeping them in a binder. Now, that's my little spiel on shuffling. That's my little spiel on why I consider riffling to be the best shuffling technique. Now, I'm going to spend a little bit more time talking about just how to perform it. The riffle shuffle. We're going to start out by flipping both sides of the deck into your hands, like into your separate hands like this. So, you might start like this, toss it, and then you're going to put your knuckles in place as such. And that little motion there can be difficult to do. I actually, when I first started riffling, if we take a look at this camera here, I used to have to push the cards against my chest just to get them organized before and situated in my hands comfortably so that I could perform a riffle shuffle. And I've seen a lot of players do that. It's not just me. I used to have to do this first to set the deck and then, get them ready in my hands for the riffle shuffle. As I got more experienced, I learned how to just flip and get the decks ready to riffle, on the fly, just in the air, and my speed of riffle shuffling has increased considerably. Now, the bridge, I think that's what that's called. The bridge is not nearly as, essential as the riffle is. The riffle is where all the shuffling happens. The bridge, that's just kind of a showy technique that's fun to do. You could just riffle and then press your cards together, and that does alleviate some of the bending required, because the bridge does damage the cards as well. So, if you are worried about your cards, you can just do this, and really you're not randomizing your deck any less by doing that, right? It's the same randomization. You can just riffle and then pat your cards together. But just for speed's sake, I do prefer the bridge myself, which is probably the most difficult part of the riffle to learn. Again, I'll go through just the various steps. First, you're going to, you have the deck in, I keep it in my left hand. But, figure out which is more comfortable for you. I'll keep the deck in my left hand and then grab the bottom half of the deck. Grab the bottom half of the deck and flip it over like this. Then you're going to have your pointer fingers wrapped around the top of the deck, your bottom 3 fingers wrapped around the bottom of the deck. That's just to get the cards set. So like if they are, kind of out here waving around, you set the cards like this with your pointer fingers and your 3 other fingers and your thumbs. You set the cards like this. You set the decks, you make them even and ready to shuffle. After you've done that with your pointer fingers, then you tuck your pointer fingers in and you put your knuckles here in the middle of the deck, and that you're ready to bend the cards and riffle them together. Now, you saw that I riffled them together, pressed them in a little bit. Now that I have them in this formation here where they are half riffled together, you take the palms of your hands and you press them into the corners of the deck, while also holding here underneath the deck with your hands, and then holding the deck into place with your thumbs. You're going to be putting pressure on the bottom corners there, and the cards will spring back into place. So let's try that one more time. We start with the flip the bottom half of the deck over, and set the deck like this in both hands so that the deck is even and the piles are not, jagged. They're not all spread out. You're going to set the deck like this before we do anything. So you're going to set the deck, then you flip it over and you have your knuckles put into place. So we're still in the same grip formation. We have our thumbs wrapped around the edge of the deck here, the middle edge of the deck. We have our 3 fingers wrapped around the back. Our fingers just went from setting the deck up top to now they are bent and they are pressed firmly into the backs of the deck. As we press our fingers further into the backs of the decks, we can feel our thumbs are ready to start to let those cards go. And as our thumbs let the cards go, we make sure that the cards are weaving into each other. The decks are close enough that the cards actually weave into one another. Now, you can, at this point, go 2 separate ways to actually shuffle the deck together. You can either just press it together like this, and that's a perfectly fine riffle shuffle. There's nothing wrong with that. It actually is the riffle shuffle that is least likely to damage your cards, or you could go forth with the bridge. So we flip, set, we press, riffle, And then the bridge, as I said, you're going to be digging your palms into the bottom corners of the deck while also kind of lightly keeping the deck in place with those thumbs. You just want to keep it in place. You're not going to be pressing with your thumbs there. You're really just pressing with the bottoms of your hands here. You do press a little bit just to get the deck going here with your bottom fingers, and just keeping the deck from flying away with your thumbs. That's all your thumbs are doing up top. You're just keeping the deck from flying away. So all the pressure for that bridge comes from the palms of your hands digging into those bottom corners there. Kind of think of them like wings a little bit. And then you're going to flip and repeat. So you do bring the deck over like this, flip it like that. Like I said, we were setting the deck. Then we bring our knuckles into the back, riffle, use the palms, and repeat. So when I'm shuffling at a tournament, I make sure to use lots of riffle shuffles. I think it is just the most effective way, as I've explained in this video, the most effective way to shuffle, the most efficient way to shuffle. And I do combine them just with a couple overhand mashes, just here and there. But I always end with a cut or, a riffle or something like that. I think that mashes are problematic for the reasons that I've explained. Not only are they less random, but it's also easier for your opponent to cheat or something like that. They can just put a card in the middle because they are looking at their deck as they're shuffling, which is a problem. So if people are mash shuffling, make sure, they shouldn't be looking at their deck as they mash shuffle. They should at least be looking off into the distance or something like that. The same as you would if you're bringing over your opponent's deck to shuffle, maybe to give them a shuffle cut. You're not going to be looking down at the cards because that would be cheating. So you need to make sure you're looking off in another direction so that you're not getting any sense of what your opponent's library or deck has got going on as well. One last thing before I go, something that is problematic that I have seen in the community, I'm actually going to make a whole video on this, is the act of declumping. Declumping is not randomizing the deck. Declumping is just when you separate a few cards that you see stuck together. So say I'm looking through my deck here. I see those 3 fire energies. I don't want those together. I might just go boom, boom, right? Separate those 3 fire energies. That is cheating. I mean, it really is. It's stacking your deck. If you don't thoroughly randomize your deck after you declump and you were just to present it to your opponent, that would be in essence stacking the deck because you took your knowledge of some cards and you just rearranged them to give yourself an advantage. So why would anybody declump their deck if they're if they planned on thoroughly randomizing the deck afterwards? Because declumping isn't cheating if you thoroughly randomize the deck afterwards. It just looks really shady because why would you declump if you really believed that you were truly randomizing the deck, which is what you're supposed to be doing when you shuffle. So why would you declump then? Some players do it as a superstitious thing. They just don't like to see 4 energy in a row, or they just don't like to see all 4 DCE right next to each other. But if you were to pick up that deck and start riffling it, and you riffle it 7 times, those double colorless energy probably won't be next to each other because every combination of cards is going to be equally likely. So anyways, that's a little thing. I don't think declumping is good for the game, and I don't think it's necessary. I think that if you know how to shuffle well, which I hopefully have showed you in this video how to do, then you shouldn't need to declump or do anything like that. I understand some players do it maybe a little bit superstitiously or something like that, but just don't do it at all because it just makes you look a little shady. Anyways, that's going to be it for my shuffling video. Showed you guys how to riffle shuffle, how I like to riffle shuffle. Anyways, I know it was a little bit of a haphazard video. Like, I had a lot to say about shuffling, actually like a lot more than I intended to say I had to say about shuffling, but that's kind of exciting. So anyways, I hope this video was informative to you. If you've got any questions about shuffling, feel free to shout out in the comments below if you just have any questions at all, and I'll do my best to answer them. So anyways, thank you all for watching the video. Let me know what you think of the riffle shuffling technique in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Peace.